we are today at the Tucson Drag Racing Celebration, the in Tucson Dragway. We're celebrating the old Tucson Drag Strip. It's the reunion for a lot of people to get back together, and we're lucky enough to find these three characters teaming up together. I know you look at each other, which one's the real character, but it's from your right to left. It's Dan Owens, Greth, Walter Nash. Okay, and these guys have they've been brought together because their love of racing, but the guy in the middle is kind of the guy that gave him the Kool-Aid and got him. Just like everybody has a mentor, and it's time to say, what were you guys thinking? You know, what do you remember him in their Red in the early days? What was he like back then? What was he like to be around?
Great. Red, what I would say about Red is he taught me a lot of things about fabrication that I never knew. In fact, I still have his original 5x10 welding table that they had when they first started doing steel work. But what was really great about Red is all the neat cars that were at his house that we got to sit in, drive, or get driven in. And I remember one day in elementary school, Red had a 62 or 3 Dodge super stock car, and Marge drove us to school one day in the super stock car on the street.
In the race car?
In the race car, yeah.
Is this the one that had the Breck Dodge on the side of it?
Yes,
or was it,
exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. Yep.
So you were finally popular in high school after that?
Finally made it.
That was elementary school.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
you were popular.
Yeah. But
Of course, she
Yeah.
waited a little bit to get them there late. All the little faces pressed up against the windows and stuff.
yeah, that's right. But the other great thing about it was, and this really doesn't have anything to do with drag racing, but it kind of does. In 1966, Red's two boys and myself were in Cub Scouts, and Red's wife was our Cub Scout leader, and we were completely the bad news boys. I'm not even going to say bears. We were terrible. But
The Bad News Cubs.
yeah, but we sure had a good time. And the things that we would do for field trips were to go to car shows, come out to the drag strip. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And she didn't even make us wear the blue shirts and the stupid hat.
Nonconformist.
Yeah.
And she'd take in that little 25T I built for her.
The Greth's grocery cart.
Yeah.
Well, my first meeting with Red, of course, anybody who ever read about drag racing from the 50s on read about Red. I mean, he was just one of the heroes of drag racing. So I'd never met him. And Larry Steiniger and Al Eschenbaugh were doing a match race or something down at the old Tucson Dragway. So they were going to fly a little Hyper Cub that they had and land at the drag strip. So they detailed me, all of 16 years old, to tow the dragster down. So I grabbed one of my high school buddies, and we towed the car down. And I don't know if it was a 3-race match race or it was a top fuel show, but the last race that was going to be for the money was Steiniger and Eschenbaugh against Red. And they had, frankly, a couple of tents on S&E in their top fuel car. So Dave Beck was with us, and Albert and Beck cook up this plan. We got to trick Red into being able to win this race. So the plan was, Beck was going to, and this is when you push down the drag strip and turn around, whatever the headers were going to end up on the opposite side of Speed Sport. Beck rubbed the side of the block and the headers with a rag soaked in oil. So the plan was to make it seem like there's some death smoke and these guys are going to think they got an easy race. So I get schooled in what to do. We push down, Beck's driving the push car, turn the cars around, Albert's being slow, starts to smoke. And the starter is trying to get everybody up. I jump out of the car, run around, do my hands like this, point at Albert at the motor. It's all a game. Albert's staging, the starter's going crazy. I don't know if you or Lyle were driving. They're bumping up, and Albert didn't get close enough. He was still back. So he'd studied the starter, smoke's pouring off. Finally the starter gets set and starts to pull. Albert goes. And by the time he takes the flag off the button, he's out 3 car lengths. and we win, and I'd never heard such profanity spoken from these guys at the finish line area. They were a little upset at the scam.
Well, yeah.
But that was my first introduction to Red Greth.
That's how you take the giant down.
It's terrible to do something like that to some honest people.
Not that you have
Now,
ever done that.
The what was funny, he was talking about those guys flying down here from Phoenix. They'd hop in this little airplane. Neither one of them had a pilot's license, Albert or Steiger. And they would get up in the air and find Picacho Peak with a beacon on it, go to it, and then turn southeast to get to the dragster.
They were IFR, I follow roads.
Yeah.
But it was dark.
Yeah.
It was at night. They couldn't find any roads.
Old fabric-covered Piper Cub.
Is that the picture that you have hanging up in the house where you raced against the
No,
airplane?
that was Tommy McDonald's twin engine thing. Yeah.
Do you ever see that, Walter?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty neat picture. They had this airplane come in. Red was at the starting line, and I think it was in the back motored car, front motored car. It must have been the front motored car because it was in the
Front motor car.
early '60s.
Because whoever I was supposed to match race was the Greek or Garch or somebody, they broke. And so they need somebody to race against. They had a huge crowd. So I found Stormy McDonald and said, hey, well, would you race Red? He says, yeah. And they figured out how fast he could be, how many knots he could be going over the starting line to make it a close race. And it was a great, great race.
Wow.
McDonald was the heir to the Zenith radio fortune.
Yes.
Lived up in Phoenix for a long time and spent some time down here.
Yeah. It was a fun deal. I mean, that's one of those deals. You're going down the strip. Here's this big ass airplane. I mean, that thing looked huge. In front of me, I'm thinking, should I go under or not? You know, I'm serious. I'm thinking, man, if he moves one way or the other, those props are going to cut me right in half. So I said, hell with it. I stood up and we got there.
The spectators must have just loved that.
Oh.
Where do you see? I mean, I've seen it a few times since a jet race, a jet car, and
Yeah.
but it's like, that was probably more doable to make it an even deal, and
They
and
came
the showmanship of it.
Well, yeah, they came across, Stormy came across the starting line because Don Sullivan, one of our partners and stuff, he said this is how many knots he should be going. And that's what he did. Stormy was super. He knew what the hell he was doing.
Did you ever do that again? Or was that a one-time deal?
I think no one will ever do it again. Never.
So, Red, was Don Sullivan the guy that worked at Air Research?
No, he
What-
worked at General Dynamics.
But wasn't he the one that got involved in the air car?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you guys.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, there you go, Red.
Describe what an air car is. I mean, this is a heritage type of deal, but when we didn't go over that earlier, tell us about the air car.
It was we were running our dragsters up in Phoenix or one of them or something, and Mel Larson came over and says, hey, I got an opportunity for you guys to build a compressed air car dragster. I said, sounds good to me. So he introduced it to the guys from Air Research, and they said, we'll furnish everything, give you so much money to build it. And so we said, we're on board, we're going to do it. We had no idea what we're getting into. He had 3 air turbines, like starter motors off of a Boeing 707, and trying to plummet and all this stuff. And these guys, they were brilliant with airplanes. They didn't know that much about race cars. But they were such neat guys to work with. Honest to goodness, they were great. But we built a car, and it was great. Now, I am still looking for the car. I would love to get it back. We sold it to a friend of Evel Knievel's up in Montana, and I think it's in a private collection up there.
So hopefully somebody's watching our interview today. You hear about it. Red wants his car back.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people say, oh yeah, I saw it up in Seattle between 2 warehouses stuff. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's still in the guy's museum.
So tell us how evil handling that little car was, Red.
You didn't know what was going on? Honest to goodness. That's probably why they had me be the test pilot.
Well, wasn't it wheel driven?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you have one picture in the house
The chain and all.
at Indy.
Yeah, right.
You're doing a
Smoking
smoking the tires at Indy.
It was a fast car,
Yeah.
but they outlawed the thing, and I was racing. I put one of the turbines in the front of my dragster, and I had to run against Art Malone, and he had his own operation. And got up there against it. He protested me, so AHRA said, no, you can't run that turbine on there. And that was my bullet, man. That was actually, I was at overdrive at the big end. Ah, that thing worked so good.
Started making some air, huh?
Oh, it was hauling. But that booted out, and that was the end of it.
You,
I do have a picture of the car with the turbine on it.
you with that experience, you know what Andy Granatelli was up with his Indy car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you had a great deal
You're
of it. If
going-
this would have
yeah,
worked, it
you're
would have
going too
worked.
fast, so we're going to put
Yeah, you can't do that.
Wasn't that in the 60s or the early 70s when?
I believe this.
Granatelli-
I
I
believe it
don't
was the
know.
late '60s.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the turbine cars ran rear engine.
Right.
So that would have been very late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, there you
Joe
go.
Leonard and the other guys driving them.
They did a good job with those things. I got a hand to Andy Granatelli. He did a hell of a job putting that all together.
Well, your car was just
Very much an innovator.
Yeah.
your car was just a big jug of compressed air that blew veins, and that's what drove it. It wasn't a sense of like the other turbine cars.
It was a reservoir that blew into the engine.
Yeah.
It was
Hit the button and away you go.
How did you gate it? I mean, did you have a valve on it, or
we
just?
did originally, and the thing was so bad that when you stepped on the throttle, you couldn't return to shut it off. So it was full power all the way.
Whoa, Nelly!
That's why I smoked the tires all the
all
way
the
down
way.
the track.
And so then Don Sullivan says, I think we can overcome this. So he made a little cam with 3 lobes on it and 3 micro switches. And so that way you'd start down the thing, 1 would kick in, and 2 and 3, and that way you could regulate. You had 3 ways you could go with the thing. And it ran, it ran.
Do you have any pictures of that car?
Oh yeah.
I
So-
think there's some out on the
Okay.
pictures.
Because hopefully we'll be able, when we do these videos, we'll put a picture up of the car so people can see. Because it was fantastic, and that kind of leads down another thing we didn't talk about earlier was, there was no super shops back then, or Townsend's or Hot Rod City. If you wanted a part,
Yeah.
you had to make it,
You
or
were-
have a buddy in California, drive to California if somebody made it. So there's a lot of borrowing, a lot of engineering going on. Did
Yeah.
you always trying to outdo one another?
Well, Adkins, the guy that used to build the old water tanks over there at Fort Lowell, I went to school with one of the boys, the meanest kids in school. Oh, something else. Anyway, he had a big rolling machine that he could roll out water tanks and so on. So we said, we need a bell housing. So we go over there and see him, and he made us a bell housing for that turbine car.
Wow.
Rolled the thing out, and I mean, he was an ace. He was good. And so then we put the pillow blocks and the drive stuff. And we built everything.
And that's interesting because back in the day, the engine and transmission combinations weren't always normal. People ran LaSalle transmissions, or they ran, odd Cadillac engines or whatever. I remember the Carter, Rich Carter, talking about them building a bell housing for their race car.
Sure.
You had to do it.
Yeah, that's what Maynard did with the Greek wanted a bell housing for his dragster, and Maynard went and built one. That's before Donovan or anybody built the things. So it was one of those deals that he did.
Yeah.
Well, remember in the 60s, Top Fuel cars would never look the same way from week to week.
Oh no,
Every week they had a little different combination, different blower. Try this, try that.
and different partners. The guys on the
Well,
coast,
That's true.
they were something else.
One guy owned the engine, another guy owned the chassis. Somebody had a credit card with some room on it.
Yep,
So that was
that's
team.
the way it
There was
worked.
no sponsorships back then, that's
No.
for sure. Well, you were lucky to get a set of spark plugs or a case of oil. That was
Yeah.
your
Well,
sponsors.
that's why the names of the cars kept adding names.
Yeah, that's how we used to have Tucson Service Station Supply help sponsors, but we had to take his 2 sons racing with us.
There's always a cost. Oh, by the way,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad to help you.
And we did.
So not only the bell housings, the Speed Sport, you had an injector
Yes.
hat or scoop that people wanted. Did you find yourself building parts for other people?
Oh yeah. And the thing with the injectors, we didn't have a mold with the scoop. We just took paper and made paper mache and stuff, kind of formed a thing, put some plaster Paris on, and made one off deal, each one of them. I still have a battery charger, big old Marquette or whatever it is, battery charger. We traded to a guy that had altered. He wanted an air scoop, so we need that battery charger.
Now, what's the story behind one of your scoops, which you certify to be original? It's on my 32 Roadster.
It's original.
Yeah, but he says that to everybody, There's 2,500.
There's only one.
25 original.
They're all numbered 1 of 250.
Yeah.
That's just like, hey, that's like
Good
Knievel.
idea there.
1 of 25.
Yeah, 1 of 25.
My
Yeah.
wife and I were going to Chicago. I forget what it was. We were driving. I was on a vacation, believe it or not. And this family says, Spotnik Sam says, oh, Knievel's in town. He's down at some steak club or something like that. I said, that's great. I'd like to see him sometime. They called him. He said, get your ass down there. We went down there, and here he was. And he was sitting at our table. We were eating, so he'd reach over for trying. He didn't even know, take the shrimp or something like that. And the women just, they thought that was the neatest thing. We went out to his motorhome, and he says, you know, I'm a painter now, an artist. I said, I don't doubt it. Go out there, and he's got a stack of paintings. I mean, it's like a whole bunch of lithographs or something. And so he says, which one do you want? I said, I don't care. I'd like to have one, though, as long as you autograph it. And he says, I wonder what number you want on this one. That was Knievel.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Well, Karamessides ran one of your scoops forever.
Oh, yeah,
didn't
for
he?
a long time, yeah. But
So-
we used to,
The first car over, the first car over that went over 200 that was at the Museum of Science and Industry, it was
My
that,
scoop, yeah.
that scoop on that car.
The
So-
Alton run, 204?
Yeah.
So you had the scoop.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
you-
what was neat about the scoops, it's like John Ware had built the GT40s and so on. And Horseman,
John Horsman.
he lives here in Tucson. And so I got to talking to him. I had to go to lunch meetings with him. And I said, I've got a scoop I want you to take a look at, injector scoop. And so I brought the scoop over. It was ready to use and so on. And I looked it over. And I said, what do you think about that? He says, Red, it's good to sonic. How's that? In other words, anything over sonic, it
Wow.
wouldn't work.
Yeah,
That, I mean, I had that thing designed so well, but he was so impressed. I thought that was so
And that was and you didn't have any computer aided design.
No.
You didn't have computers. You didn't have flow
I
benches.
did have a mold for this one that I
Yeah.
reworked.
But you knew what you wanted,
Yeah.
and you went after it, and
Yeah.
it worked.
And John was another one of the Tucson car racing stories. If you watch the movie Le Mans, the team manager for that,
Yeah.
that character was John Horsman. And he got hired here to work in a BMW store that Bib Stillwell, who was the seed money for the Brabham Repco Formula One cars in Australia. Bib ran Learjet for a while here and had a big collection of Formula One cars, and all the Formula One guys would come into town to do ground school
Yeah.
and flight school for the Lears. And John managed the Aston Martin Le Mans team, passed away about 6 months ago.
Did he? Okay. What a gentleman.
Well,
He
what a,
really
what a
was.
heritage.
Oh,
I was getting my BMW service, and I knew who John Horsman was, but I didn't know he was in Tucson. And I'm at the service counter, he's back, and I'm talking to a guy, and I see pictures of Aston Martins at Le Mans, and I said, wow, that's the car that Carroll Shelby won with Roy Salvadori. And he comes out in this British accent, how is it you know that? We became friends over
You're in
that.
Tucson. You're not supposed to know that
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah. What a gentleman. Yeah.
The thing about one thing I just want to say about the air scoops is, if you went into Red's house, there was lamps that looked just like Speed Sport air scoops. I mean, everyone had those air scoops
Ye-
back in the days. And I remember the ones that you and Margie had in your bedroom.
Yeah.
They'd taken them little fake stones,
Stones.
glued
Glued 'em on.
them on there,
You
and
beda-
made hanging lamps out of them.
you bedazzled it.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, we
exactly.
couldn't afford furniture. We made our own.
It worked while you were making them. What the heck? Throw a couple more for the house, or the ones that may be the blend for a race car. We'll make it furniture out of this.
Oh, yeah, if we did, we cut the bottom out.
So, you did the scoop. You did, and then the wheels you ran were unique.
They were ones that I got to give Lyle credit on that, because we wanted to go into the wheel business. He wanted to do it because he needed a job, and so we went down to Knight's Foundry here in South Tucson and had them cast up some hubs. We started manufacturing wheels. Hired every kid in the neighborhood to come lace the damn wheels
And polish.
and polish.
The
And that was
lacing had to be
filthy.
artwork.
Well, hey, and he was selling them all over, and then somebody sent a copy of them over to Taiwan, and that blew us out of the water.
No, that doesn't happen.
But if you really think about it, I mean, that was a deal back in the day, like you
Right.
said, before manufacturing. Here's a guy making wheels for lots of race cars across the country out of his garage.
But there was a lot of that with different parts, and
Right.
that's how certain people funded their racing.
Yeah.
Is that they got good at, so they had parts and they sold them or swapped them for other things they needed. You've been a manufacturer because you manufactured the scoops and you manufactured wheels.
And we made plates for Chrysler rods to beef them up, the little I-beam part of the deal. That's before aluminum rods and all that stuff. We make little metal plates and weld them in. I mean, no one heard of things like that.
Rod girdles.
Yeah.
Or rod
exactly.
trusses, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Didn't weigh anything, but boy, they
But this is a story of what's great about, first of all, I like to really believe we wouldn't be anywhere without the greatest generation coming home from World War II and their can-do attitude about getting things done.
Yeah.
My favorite generation, my dad, my uncles, everybody. But they came home and they had this can-do. After World War II, the whole country was up and wanted to do things. They got through the war, they got through the rationing. They want to go racing, they want to go quicker, and the parts were there. But that didn't prevent people from wanting to go faster. The belly tanker racers, all the different people did things. So you were taking Chrysler rods and filling in the beam, making a truss or to make them so they're more durable.
beef them up, yeah. See, it's just like you read. I read that book about Eskandarian, his autobiography. What a great book, because it doesn't say I. He told what he did, and he just said, "This is what I had to do, this and that, and I had so and so help me and so on." Very interesting man.
I'm very impressed with him. I've had the opportunity to meet him. It just in the last few years, I got to know him better, and he's just like all the stories I hear about being a little bit of a pack rat, or or a collector or purveyor of. You're going to use that and taking it home with him. I've heard stories about his office and everything is organized, but his piles of papers. But the man was fantastic. And how do you, I mean, this is what the blessings of the stories of what we've done. There was a guy, part of the greatest generation, that came home. The big cam wars was Giovanni and Howard's eventually, and everybody, and they stayed with it. And that competition and innovation made all of us better racers.
Oh yeah, better products. You bet, it was real good. And with like Eskandarian, we went to a smokers party in Bakersfield, the Sheep Herders Club or something like that. We all had steaks and so on, and so we were done. And Eskandarian gets up and he says, "Well, I'm going to pick up the bones." And I said, "That sound like him?"
Yeah.
He said, somebody said, "Why?" He said, "I'm going to feed him my dog." And they said, "You don't own a goddamn dog." And he didn't. He's taking home to make soup.
Yeah.
It's funny, but you sit there and you talk about that kind of stuff. I mean, I used to see Iski all the time walking around vintage events, drag races, the LA Roadster Show, that kind of stuff. Always had the same shirt on. Always had the same khaki old pants on. Sometimes a cigar. But he always had that little 3x5 notebook with a pen in his pocket.
Yeah.
Just, that's how he got to where he is. Just writing down stuff and remembering it. And this guy here does the same thing. He's got a little notebook.
So back in the day, if he had a shirt without a pocket, it wasn't any use to him. He had to put
exactly.
put his computer files in.
I didn't get a pocket protector though.
Oh darn!
You weren't going to do that.
He drew the line somewhere.
Yeah. Come on, we have to to keep your man card. You had to not get the pocket protector.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a great story with Iski, and that's really what drove us all. With people like Iski and yourselves, the innovation. The parts weren't there.
Yeah.
Iski, we make fun of him, but he man's right at 100 years old. Okay,
Yeah.
He's still alive, so he's lived through tough times. He lived sometimes through rationing, and you just didn't throw things away.
No.
And there's a guy, I guarantee you, that probably has gotten more use out of other people's discards than anybody, but is yet at the same time a brilliant man and been great for our sport.
Howard Johansson, we went over there. We'd grind the cams for our stuff. Went over there, and they just added on to one of the buildings. It was corrugated tin thing and so on. And they had some machines out there, and so Lon and I go out there and we talked to Howard and said, what? How come you stopped there? He says, "That's as far as the welding leads would go." It was true.
Well, the story, Albert's the short car, the black car.
Star International had a black dragster that was terribly short wheelbase, and I remember asking Albert, "Why the hell did you build one that's such a short wheelbase?" And he said, "Well, I went to Stuckey's because Stuckey was behind. He didn't. We were building a rear end to trade for the chassis. He didn't have it done, so I just went out and said, I'll weld it." I looked at the tubing, said, "What's the story with the wheelbase?" Says, "I cut the tubes too short." I got a race next week, so that's why they built the short car, because that's all they had.
That's what you did.
And that car won.
What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention.
That car ended up winning, I think, 15 straight top
Yeah.
fuel eliminators at Beeline.
Think about
64,
yeah.
65.
Think about how many Coors cans were header covers back in the days of drag racing. I mean,
And circle track racing and
Yeah,
a lot,
yeah, exactly,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I've seen people try to make mufflers out of them, the whole works, but but that's what that's wonderful. So what is your takeaway? This is really about all of you, but certainly Red's inspired a lot of people. What is your story about Red that people, when they look at this video 10, 15, 20 years ago,
Well, he was
from now, excuse me.
the symbol of a generation that wanted to go race. You hit it on the head, no speed shops. So they just did what they had to do to make what they wanted to race. And everybody raced what they had, raced like hell, still stayed friends, went fast. You don't see that much anymore.
You ever see him mad?
I don't know that I ever.
I can't
have.
see this guy ever being really
I've been
angry mad.
Sure, I have. Yeah.
Oh darn.
No, I've been
No,
mad.
I've heard him use a few words before
Okay.
that probably are inappropriate to put on this
Did it
podcast.
usually involve a woman?
No.
Okay.
And I got to tell a story on him.
Oh.
Please.
He was talking about
It's fair play. Come on.
yeah, flying down and all that kind of stuff. Albert and Larry flying down and all that stuff. Well, he wanted to take the race car, their race car, to show and tell. Did you tell the story? No.
Well, I was taking it back to their shop after a race down there.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so he wanted to take it to show and tell, and he hooked it up to the back of the truck, and he starts out. He gets in a cul-de-sac and can't turn. Here he is, about 100-pound, 60-year-old kid trying to unhook the trailer, race car, and all that stuff, move it, and move the truck. He finally, all by himself, moved all this stuff so he could get the car home.
Larry and,
Longest day ever, huh?
Larry and Red never forget that story.
No.
They tell it at the drop of a hat.
Isn't it amazing how they can detect the tone of your face and the color that comes in there, your blood flow,
The
and
weak point.
Yeah, the weak point. Yeah, they love you. Anytime they remember stories
that
like
was
that.
a great story. Oh,
Well,
Well-
Larry took a big picture of the car in the trailer and wrote under it about moving it, taking that cul-de-sac, framed it, and gave it to me at one of the first reunions.
That's great.
where he did
That's
it.
great.
that's so neat. Yeah, that's where you can't get mad at anybody. I mean, hey, this is where it happened.
We learn by our mistakes.
I'm stuck. What do I do?
I
can't
gotta
tell
get out of
him.
here somehow.
I can't tell him I lost the race car.
So, you guys, this is what your legend's about. It's what you've done that opened the door for other people, and the demand. People, what eventually happens, people go racing, and then there becomes a larger need for certain parts, and manufacturers go into it, and then they find distributors, and people get in, and they build a speed shop in town, so people don't have to send away for everything, and that's how it started. But it really started because of the need for speed,
Yep.
and your passion for it, and the way you've handled yourselves, the inspiration you've been. Each one of you has been a big contributor to the health and welfare of racing in Arizona, nationally. You've inspired a lot of people, and this is what makes you legendary. So you guys, you really are Arizona drag racing legends, and you wonder why you are. Watch your video; it'll tell you why you're Arizona drag
Thank
racing
you.
legends.
Can I finish off with one thing?
Absolutely.
Red's always been an influencer, right? I mean, everyone looks up to Red. So when I was a kid growing up next to him, every Sunday morning Margie would cook chicken hearts. That was the deal, chicken hearts at the Greth's house, right? Couldn't stand them, but Red ate them, so everyone loved him, right?
These are-
Because Red liked the chicken hearts. So anyhow, that's all.
Well, you learned to do it. You guys, you've been awesome. I appreciate having you here. Thank you so much for being a big part of everybody's lives, and thank you for taking time to visit us today.
Thank
Thank you for taking
Well
the
done,
time.
Red.
I appreciate it. Red?
It's fun.